Okay, we'll move on to the aliens and hidden technology. Gemini, you have a question for Stan?
I do. Good evening, Stan. Do you believe that benevolent aliens exist? What type of life are they, and will they intervene on humanity's behalf?
Well, that's a big question. Needs a big answer. The short answer is yes, there are benevolent extraterrestrials. Where they are from, if they're from another little planet or another galaxy or another star system, this is debatable until the cows come home. However, from my studies of ancient documents, Hebrew, some Sumerian documents, and Chaldean stuff, and Egyptian stuff, I do think that mankind was created here in the last, 6,000 years. We're created here for part of a courtroom drama at the best I can say is for settling a conflict in a parallel universe concentric to our own. When they speak of the heavens in the various cultures and religions, they talk about heavens up or outward from the planet. They point that way. With the model that I'm developing for this gravitational theory, it happily allows multiple coexisting existences of universes which have common central points that their mass comes together and then expands back and forth and they pass through each other like ghosts almost because of the frequency and the phasing between their atoms. So in the Hebrew Bible, for instance, they're talking about at least 3 levels of existence, and the upper level being where God, the oneness, the Elohim dwell. There was a conflict up there, a challenge for the orders, what the old writings say. And rather than have a war, the rebellion or the challenge for the way the whole place was to be run was put into a virtual courtroom, which was Earth and the human population in the northeastern part of Africa, probably in Ethiopia, where the Danakil Plains are now covered with magma, but before then it was like a garden complex. Evidence does show, geological evidence and archaeological evidence does show that the mitochondrial Eve did start somewhere in the Omo Valley, northeast Africa, very close to where I found the Garden of Eden in the Danakil Plains in the research I've done. Now, that's where the human, the Adam and Eve type legend started, but they seem to have interfaced with other beings, other humanoids, because Cain married somebody in the east of Eden over what's now India. So there was one set of special kind of beings created there by the non-humans, the creators. Now, we call them, aliens or extraterrestrials, whatever you want to call them. They're definitely not from around virtual environment that won't hurt the heavens, as this battle for authority and structure of how the universe should be run is fought here in this legal courtroom. Now, because of this, the guys that were challenging the authority, the established order out there, kind of tried to pollute the virtual environment, the virtual courtroom, to make it finish the way they wanted to at the end of this 6,000 or 7,000 years of testing the new order of things, a dictatorial type structure rather than a grassroots type structure. The Bible does say, in fact, even parts of the Quran do say, that we are going to see 2 waves of aliens. Bad guys come first, posing as good guys, is a simplification. Later deposed by the real good guys who come into the courtroom of the earth and say, okay, game's over, out of the pool, this is it. You've cheated too many times, and the decision is made by yourself. It won't work. It won't be stable. In the final edition of my book, The Cosmic Conspiracy, last year, I added a chapter on this very issue based on just 8 verses that I retranslated from the Hebrew, Arabic, some Sumerian words, Chaldean. And it shows in these 8 verses out of the book of Daniel, written in about 600 BC, that there's going to be a super alien God, little g, come to earth posing as God, and he will give technology to the ruler of the earth at that time, the human, that will be in charge, to make a dictatorial order, new world order that favors strength, or like the whip or the lash. It's going to be a dictatorial structure. And this alien being, this super being, which will probably be called Satan, and those who side with him in this rebellion will all be cast down to earth from their level of heavens for the last great battle. So, do I believe in aliens and good aliens? Yes. They're not just simply accidental, beings that occurred on some other planet. These are the creators of what we know here, and perhaps of the entire universe, for that matter. I mean, it's to us, it's a big place, but for beings that have been in existence for billions, if not forever, of years, this could be nothing more than a supercomputer that we call our universe. A dynamic, interactive computer, but still a computer. So, yes, we have bad guys posing as good guys coming and are here now. I think a lot of what we've seen as far as abduction cases by Greys and beings that hurt people in the analysis and experiments they did, these were a ploy put out by the bad guys so that we could have our bad guy Greys, our allegedly good guys that look like us, perhaps a little better looking and maybe, 9 or 10 feet tall on the average, but this whole thing is to satisfy what a lot of the religions are looking for as far as an arrival of a Messiah, to get rid of the bad guys. And this will all still be a deception, because the writings say in Daniel and in Matthew, when the real creator, the real extraterrestrial, if you want to call it that, but the real creator of all that we know, Yeshua, when he arrives, everything on the planet that is alive will know instantly. It's like the lightning striking from the eastern horizon to the western horizon, right across. It won't be someone saying, okay, look, he's in his flying saucer out here in the desert, go see him there, or he's in an underground bunker, go see him there, or he's in orbit around the planet, go see him there. The real creator has control of everything. Super technology. The technology. So with all those kind of contributory thoughts, I answer your question saying, yes, there are benevolent aliens, benevolent creator.
Thank you. And do you feel that, based on all the Earth changes that are coming up, that the time frame for these benevolent aliens to show up is during that time period, sometime after that? Do you have a thought on that?
The truly benevolent ones, under the leadership of Yeshua, Jesus, they say in English, the truly benevolent one will come at the end of these Earth changes when it looks like all hope is lost and every living thing on the planet is about to die. But before it does, the truly benevolent creator will return, lock up the bad guys, and lock up those who have sided with him, and start repairing the planet, teaching us how to live within the blueprint of the planet the way it should be. And I don't know what kind of power or energy we'll be using or how food will be grown, but there will be nations all over the world, and they will survive and start to build a new culture of man on the planet as a planet rather than just simply nation states. And I think this, if you look at prophecies that speak of this time, we're looking at between 7 and 10 year period where these changes start and lead up to a really violent 7-year period at the end of this 7 to 10 years. And at the very end of that 7-year period, very close to it, is when people just think there's no hope, that those that are left on the planet will think there's no hope. Fortunately, the Bible is very specific in many places in Hebrew and Greek that there will be a protection of those who understand what this is all about, like I've been telling you, who side with the true Messiah, the Yeshua ben Elohim, and they will be taken to a place of safety. Some call it the rapture. We know that it was like it was with Noah. He was put inside of an ark. Maybe we'll be put inside of a craft, or maybe we'll be trans-dimensional in some kind of a different kind of body. But I firmly believe there will be a segment of the human population saved out of that terrible time of tribulation that we're approaching now. And that's the good news. So people that side with the Messiah, as I explained in the book, if you recognize that he is our doorway to the Elohim, the Creator, then once you've done that and follow him and the teachings, you're going to be in that group that is saved, like Noah was. He does say it's like in the times of Noah, so shall it be in the last days of this age, not the end of the earth, just the end of this age. And then we'll have that 1,000-year period of rebuilding the planet under a leader, a king that knows the planet, that helped to design the whole system and can make it work together for us, truly in harmony.
Thank you, Stan.
Okay?
Athena, you have a question for Stan.
Yes, Stan. In your most recent Coast to Coast interview with George Norrie, you addressed the ancient folklore surrounding the Anunnaki, who allegedly accompany the brown dwarf on its periodic journey into our solar system and actually live inside the star, I believe. While I am persuaded that a brown dwarf star does exist, we have heard that you think they live underground and off the heat inside the planet, but I am having difficulty believing that any race of beings might theoretically be able to survive on this celestial body. Can you please explain your theory in greater detail?
Well, first of all, this mystery object out there, this Planet X, I don't think it's a star. I think it would be fairly unlikely that a race of beings could live on the star in bodies like ours or inside of the star. Not impossible, but fairly unlikely. A planet orbiting out where its orbit would be a 3,600-year period would, for the majority of its orbit, be out so far that it would be cold, it would be frozen, and you couldn't grow stuff on it, and the light from the sun wouldn't be a big help. However, if that planet follows the same rule that I'm seeing here on Earth and on Mars and on a number of moons of Saturn and Jupiter and on our moon, if it follows a pattern, the poles open up periodically and close periodically. They're only open for brief times and then they close, which is a natural progression of this containment or organizing gravity wave. So if they were living inside of a planet which had a hot core, then they would have a low-grade light source to grow and keep warm, and it would be like a spaceship that they lived on the inside of as it went out in its far reaches of the orbit and came back in toward the sun. As it came back in toward the sun, they may have a way to just open up artificial holes or maybe have tunnels dug, I don't know, to come out of the inside of that planet, jump over, visit Earth, like Sitchin said it happened, and then go back to their planet and go back home. So I don't have trouble with this at all. In fact, even in the biblical records, they talk about a bottomless pit. And a bottomless pit is the inside of a sphere. There's no bottom inside there. There can be shells, but if you're inside the Earth living, we could actually have beings trapped down there in some form of existence, whether they be like bodies like ours or not, that the Greeks talked about, the Romans talked about, the Hebrews talked about. It's Hades, it's Tahom, the great depths down there. It's hell, and that's, maybe it's hot from the core inside there, and maybe these beings are trapped in there, imprisoned in there for the time of the end of this great courtroom. I don't have trouble with them living on a planet that goes out there and comes back with a 3,600-year period if it has a hot core inside of it and if its polar regions do open and close periodically or artificially. That's what I explained on the Coast to Coast show, and my theory does predict that.
Thank you, Stan.
Yes, ma'am.
Bobby, you have a question for Stan.
Yes, I do. Thank you. Several years ago, I read a book by Tom and Anita Horn called The Airman Gate. It got me looking at stargates, for lack of a better term. My understanding is that historical evidence shows that these gates were around thousands of years ago. Could you give us some information regarding these gates?
Okay. Yes, that's quite a good question, actually. I've talked with Tom about that. The ziggurats that some of the bases of them still exist in the Velvet Plateau and in various places in the Middle East. These ziggurats, I think, were copies of and poor man copies of what Nimrod was trying to build in the Tower of Babel. In the Middle Eastern languages, Babel is Bab and El, which Bab is doorway and El is short form for God. So it was a doorway to God, much like the Stargate series talked about at Heaven's Gate. Well, this is God's doorway.